I'm also officially challenging Cricket Joe to an 18-hole golf match right here. On Doral Blue Monster, considered one of the greatest tournament golf courses anywhere in the world, one of the great courses of the world. It will be among the most watched sporting events in history, maybe bigger than the Ryder Cup or even the Masters.
Hey, everybody. Welcome into an all-new episode of the Can We Please Talk podcast. As always, I'm Mike Leon.
And waiting for CNN to tell me I'm too old to podcast, I'm Nick Saveri.
That's right. And you know what? And maybe you're too old. You're not too old to play golf, according to that last clip there. Maybe Nick Saveri and I will go to that Biden-Trump matchup at Doral, which is 10 minutes from my house. On the program today, speaking of the Dems, them damn Dems in disarray. Say that 5 times fast, Nick. Nick and I, on the last few weeks that's happened here in D.C. as Democratic lawmakers, strategists, pundits, they all scatter to discuss whether or not President Biden should remain at the top of the ticket for the Democratic Party. But are they all missing the point as usual? Nick and I will weigh in. Plus, later on in the program, we had to bring it back. It's getting out of hand so far this summer. To link this in or to not link this in, the world's #1 business connecting platform that have people posting things they probably wouldn't even tell their coworkers. Nick and I are going to take a look at some questionable posts and let you know if you should link it in or not link it in. Some housekeeping notes before I say hello to Mr. Saveri, as we've taken a little bit of a break here, find out how he's doing. All new episode of Ask the Experts is out there over on leonmedianetwork.com or listen wherever you get your pods. Curran has a brand new show this week. 2 fighters that are fighting under the Box Lab Promotions banner. Christopher Pitufo Diaz fights this Saturday as part of the Enes Avedissian undercard over there July 13th at the Wells Fargo Center. He takes on Derlin Hernandez Geraldo. Like I mentioned at the Wells Fargo Center, you can check out the interview that Curran did exclusively, with Christopher Pitufo Diaz. And then plus, Giovanni Estella is back in action, taking on undefeated Aaron McKenna live from Japan as part of Matchroom Boxing's $1 million prize fighter tournament. It all happens Monday, July 15th, airing exclusively worldwide on The Zone. Check out the interviews that Curran did with Christopher Pitufo Diaz and Giovanni Estella over on leonmedianetwork.com or listen to the Ask the Experts podcast wherever you get your pods. And also, an all-new episode of the If You Lead Them podcast is out there. Katie welcomed in renowned author of The Mentally Strong Leader, Nick, The Mentally Strong Leader, Scott Mouts. This book is like a huge selling book. He was on the show recently discussing the importance of building habits to develop mental strength, what the habit building science looks like, the tools you need to help strengthen your mental muscles, and more. This guy interviewed over 3,500 leaders in business, and he was also at the top of the food chain for a major Fortune 500 company. So this is an episode you don't want to miss. Katie's getting some great guests on. If you truly want to learn what the secret is to some of these other leaders that are out there in different walks of life, Katie tries to find out. She does her best each and every week. You can listen to all new episodes of the If You Lead Them podcast over on leonmedianetwork.com or listen wherever you get your pods. Okay, now I say hello. That's all out of the way. I'm going to have some fun on this show today, Nick. You just heard the former president talking about a golf match. That's never going to happen, but I would love for it to happen because as I tweeted, we would all get to see how bad President Biden is at golf and how much Donald Trump cheats at golf. So I think it'd be a win-win. I think it may do more than what the debate actually showed us. Well, how are you doing? I know we've been off for a little bit here and, haven't connected in about a week or so. What's been going on over your way?
Trying to stay cool. Right now we've got in Pennsylvania, we've had and it's not just in Pennsylvania. Really throughout the country, there's just been a massive heat wave. Obviously, you're down in Florida and you all, this is Tuesday for you all, right? Like that's sort of how it goes in the Gulf Coast. But, throughout the country, we're all feeling it. I know Texas right now, I'm forgetting the name of the storm. And that may send up some rain by us, but it's a hot summer. And, and again, I always, I try to playfully bring this up. This is not by accident, folks. Vegas this past weekend hit 129, I believe, or 125. It's one of the hottest days recorded. But yeah, so just trying to stay through the heat, man. Just waiting for the fall, and just kind of trying to stay as much in the water as we can. How are you all doing down south?
Doing good, man. I mean, it's incredibly hot down here. Like you said, during the day, man, you put the AC down to 69, 68, and it doesn't go below 73 because that's how hot it is outside. That you can't even get cold inside the house. So it's brutal down here in Miami, but all is well. It's so funny that you alluded to the fall because it's almost like you fed into the follow-up perfectly, Nick, because our first segment is about what's going to happen this fall, the election, right? President Biden versus former President Trump. Maybe, according to some Dems, they don't think it should be like that. Nick, as this has been making the rounds over the last couple of weeks after what happened on the CNN debate between President Biden and former President Trump, now all of a sudden, everybody is asking these questions of Democratic lawmakers, strategists, pundits everywhere. It's all over the place as to whether or not Biden is fit to lead the ticket, A. B, can he beat Trump in November? And C, could he actually serve 4 more years? And they're all making these different projections based on what they saw on a 90-minute, one-on-one debate format. And you and I have even been vocal about it. He looked terrible that night. He looked like somebody that couldn't do A, B, or C, like I said. I wanted to play a little bit of the reaction that's going around here. You and I are going to kind of react to some of this because it's all over the place. But the first thing that I want to play for you is the man himself who's getting all this criticism. He called in Morning Joe on MSNBC, which you would think is like a Donald Trump tactic to call in a television network. Nope. The current president of the United States called in, said he was a little bit upset, and this is what he said.
I'm getting so frustrated by the elites. Now, I'm not talking about you guys, but about the elites in the party who they know so much more.
The elites in the party. Maybe he means Nick Saveri. Maybe not. Maybe he means members of Congress or high-profile donors or influential people on TV. Whatever it is, right now, what seems to be happening and what's being covered by all of these outlets nonstop, including shows that I've been on, is whether or not President Biden should remain at the ticket. It's almost like every segment is asking a member of Congress, a pundit, a strategist, should he remain at the top of the ticket? Take no further example than our buddy Jake Tapper over at CNN on the Lead with Jake Tapper every afternoon, 4 p.m. He had Representative Adam Smith from the state of Washington on the program recently. This is how they led the show. Take a listen.
For the record, we usually have you here to talk pure policy and foreign policy and armed services, not politics. But this is a fraught moment in our democracy. Where are you on this issue? What's your message to President Biden and to your fellow Democrats?
Well, look, I think he should step aside. I think it's become clear that he's not the best person to carry the Democratic message. And here's the thing. We have an incredibly strong message and record to run on. And in all respect to the president, he's done a great job. Okay, when you look at where the economy was when he came in, how our economy dealt with COVID so much better than any other economy in the world, the progress that we're making, the unemployment rate, stock market. Look, there's a lot of work left to do. Housing's too expensive. Income inequality is still too great. But we've made progress on that too. That the lowest black unemployment, black poverty rate came under this president. I saw a report today in the New York Times that some of those areas that have seen the manufacturing jobs flee are actually starting to get better. Okay, and then on the other side, you've got Donald Trump, who's a complete disaster. Project 2025 and his promise to cut taxes more for the rich and corporations while raising tariffs to tax poor people. We got a good message. The president has shown he is not capable of delivering that message.
7 House Democrats so far, including Representative Adam Smith and, funny enough, Nick, Representative Seth Moulton, who's been on this program a few different times, friend of the show, told CBS Boston on Sunday, and this is this past Sunday, that George Washington chose not to run for a third term. Mr. Biden should follow that cue on another term. I think that can be President Biden's legacy as well. He defeated Donald Trump once, and then he was willing to hand power over to a new generation of leaders. That's the kind of amazing legacy, that a great president like Biden deserves. Now, look, not everybody is in line with some of that. I just mentioned there's 7 House Democrats so far that have been calling for him to step down. But just as equal in this tug of war is the folks that are saying, hey, get in line. President Biden's our guy. One of them lives in Nick's state. He wears a hoodie all the time instead of wearing a polo like a normal human being. His name is Senator John Fetterman.
We have to support Joe Biden. And I want to address all the other crazy stuff that was happening even before the debate. We're going to abandon Biden, or we're going to walk away, or I'm going to be uncommitted, or that. Well, congratulations. If you're panicking now after the debate, you were willing to around with this before all that, because we're going to need all in on this. And if you think you're going to send a message as a Democrat or voting for someone else or throwing away your vote, well, guess what the message was in 2000? That was tanking Gore. And that's 2 terms of Bush. And if you thought you were going to be clever and send a message in 2016 and piss your vote away for somebody like Stein, well, congratulations. You know, that got us Trump. So if you want to do this in 2024, if you want to play with that kind of a fire, you're going to really you really have to own that kind of a burn.
You got to own that kind of a burn. So from one lawmaker to another, one saying they need to step down. This is why it would be good. There's a message behind it. The Democratic message can be carried by somebody else, kind of like a relay race. And then the senator from the man who I'm staring at on the screen from your hometown in Pennsylvania, he says, get back in line. Everybody fall back in line. Now, Nick, before I turn to you to talk about this, I want to give some more context, because this past week on Monday, obviously the President Biden sent out a letter to, all these House Democrats, Democrats on the Senate side as well, saying that he's committed to this. He's not going away. He will remain in this race, right? And then obviously House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries met with folks over Zoom Sunday night. Interest of full disclosure for people listening to Nick and I, we had a member of Congress that was supposed to be on the show for this episode. Unfortunately, because of the meetings and all of this other, House meetings that were happening with Democrats, we had to reschedule with them. Now, this is a higher up representative that you will know and see, because they were part of the Trump impeachment hearings and some other. They've been very vocal on the television circuit. So you'll know who this person is. We just couldn't have them for today, which is what we were going to do. But we're going to reschedule that, because Democrats right now are sending messages to any media outlet, including yours truly right here, to say, hey, we need to talk about this. We either need to support the person, or we need to get behind, before the convention happens, having an open convention come August. But are they all maybe missing the point? This is what I want to get at with you today, Nick. So let's start first with reaction to everything you just heard there, parsing out Representative Adam Smith, the other 7 House Democrats that have kind of called for President Biden to step aside. We haven't gone that far, but we critiqued his debate performance and whether or not he could project that over the next 4 years. I should mention the president also did an ABC News interview with George Stephanopoulos, where he just looked terrible again in a one-on-one interview setting, forgetting sometimes different parts of the questions that were being asked. Very low talking, which is normal for somebody who is older. So I don't want to criticize him for that. But it just not instilling confidence in the way you would think somebody should when they're doing a one-on-one interview. And by the way, don't take my word for it. Progressive podcast, Pod Save America, the 4 former Obama guys, Nick and I, we don't happen to know them, but we happen to know of the show. John Lovett, John Favreau, Dan Pfeiffer, Tommy Vitor. They have had this conversation over and over. And after the interview on ABC News with George Stephanopoulos, this is what John Lovett, again, who was an advisor to Hillary Clinton's campaign and worked in the Obama White House, steeped in Democratic politics and a progressive, true and true. This is what he had to say about all of this.
Wasn't just a bad night. We all saw it. And it is, barring an explanation, which he keeps denying outs, right? Like that he was very sick, that he has some condition that has been repaired, whatever. The explanations are kind of vague, and they're about having a cold or having been jet lagged or having been run down. But that doesn't do enough to assuage our concerns about what we saw that night, right? And so the explanations don't offer anything. But even with those caveats there about why his job is so difficult, if you were going to raise the stakes on one interview, it can't be another example of you being hard to understand, not because he's soft, not because he's mumbly, but because his train of thought doesn't make sense. And so you've now told us that he's up for this job. Everyone's saying, why isn't he out there? Why isn't he out there? Why isn't he out there? He goes out there and he offers this middling performance, and it ends up being the absolute worst of both worlds because he's right? The stakes are incredibly high.
So, Nick, I played a lot for you there. It's a lot to digest. Let's try to go little by little here, or you can group it all together. You got the ones calling for him to step aside. You've got, and I just played 3 different types of it, right? We played the punditry ones. We played the Senate members that wants everybody to fall in line. And then we've played the House member that's been vocal that he needs to step aside. What do you make of all of this? And I hate using the word infighting because that's all they use on television to show this chaos and dysfunction, which, by the way, none of us are seeing. This is all kind of behind closed doors. They just happen to be running the outlets because outlets are inviting them on. Who wouldn't go on television as somebody who loves to go on TV when they invite us on? What says Nick Savary, the Democrat on the show?
Yeah, I would say that, I think there's a couple of places to hit here. First, look what I just did, right? Biden calls into a news program, right? Like a daily talk show on MSNBC to share how he's feeling about something. Immediately, I'm brought back to Samantha Guthrie and her co-host talking to Trump regularly on the Today Show. And back then, I also thought it was weird that a political candidate just gets to call in and spout off whatever is on their mind. And that feels the same way. And it definitely gives me that sense of the Trump effect of, you can just be a showboat charlatan, just talking head and, not practice like sound decency. Like, do a press conference, put out a statement. And I know he did earlier. I think a letter went out earlier today of his intentions to stay in the race, President Biden. I think to call in the show and say, like, you're unhappy with, what people are doing, the elites, by the way, which, listen, when I talk about this with conservatives, and I've said this for a while, even before we started this show, of what I've always considered sort of an attack on intellectuals. And we see this now with universities and this growing distrust of our systems. That's kind of what that gave off a little bit. So it's important to note that. As far as my senator, I don't agree with him. I think it's a stupid argument to say, well, if you don't do this, you will blah, blah, blah. Just shut up. Shut up. First off, John Fetterman, if you're listening to this show, should come on, please. Be an adult. Put on a damn polo. Put on a damn suit. We all pay your salary. What is wrong with you? Represent me better, for God's sakes. That aside, this idea of like, get in line or else. Like, how dare you? How dare you tell us when we saw that man sound befuddled, dotty, and completely incoherent at times? I saw that. I also saw his rally the day after, and he sounded great. That's fantastic. But my question is, why do I feel that I have to flip a coin and pray what side it's going to land on as to what version of Biden are we going to get? How does that make sense in the Oval Office when we really don't know what version of Joe we're going to get? That's not what I want in a president. I, meanwhile, totally understand where Representative Smith is coming from, where Representative Seth Moulton's coming from. It's fair to put forward, this is not going to get it done. It's just not. Now, in terms of where I stand on this, here's where I would put this. I think he should step down, but if he doesn't, I will still vote for him. I'd vote for Joe Biden dead over Donald Trump. And by the way, I'm quoting, I believe, a Pennsylvania voter who said something very similar. That's where I stand on this. Any other Republican, I'm probably not going to vote that way, especially if they're proposing Project 2025, but essentially not Trump. Hell no. So that's where I am. Am I excited about it? No, but this is where I differ from progressives and younger Democrats who just kind of give the middle finger to this because their guy's not running, which is the same nonsense you all did with Bernie Sanders in 2016. You better show up. If you better show up or shut up, if that court keeps going the way it is. We just saw the court basically say, well, we can't quite define the official responsibilities of the president, but he can basically get away with whatever he wants. That's what's on the line. So vote wherever you want, but show up or shut up.
You know, the biggest thing that I've noticed in all of this, Nick, is, and I'm going to call you out a little bit too, and you'll see why, because we're going to call each other out. We're all being hypocrites in all of this. Let me tell you why. The first thing I want to start with is a tweet from Nina Turner, who is a former, you just mentioned Bernie Sanders, her former campaign manager. She used to be a pundit at CNN. She said something to the effect of, and this was a quote tweet that she put out from somebody who had asked a senator where they stand on should Biden run or not run. What pundits and elected officials seem to be missing in this moment, and then it says, Americans are not asking themselves if he can win. They're asking if he can serve another 4 years. What I said at the beginning of the segment was, it's actually a 3-part question. It's, can he make it to tomorrow? Can he actually win in November? But then also, can he serve another 4 years? So there's a third part to it. The reason I say we're all being hypocrites is right now, we're doing what we made fun of Fox News and some of these other folks for doing for the last couple of years. Now, again, I say this as somebody who worked at Fox News. Fox News, for months, maybe years, cognitive decline. You've always heard that buzzword and phrase, cognitive decline. They've shown videos of the president showing cognitive decline. Jesse Waters, the bane of my existence, and Nick Savarius as well. We've made fun of that. Now, Jake Tapper's show, now Rachel Maddow's show, cognitive decline. Those words are being used. Footage is being shown. Jon Stewart just did a segment on The Daily Show showing some more lapses and instances, right, with a clever pie chart. If you can't recognize the hypocrisy in all of that, it's the same thing that we've talked about, the Harvey Dent. You live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And now we're all doing it. We're all doing it. And you know when it all started, Nick? When you and I, and Marie Harf and others that have talked about this during the primary process made fun of Representative Dean Phillips. Representative Dean Phillips was looking at polling in November, and he said, and I quote, "The reason I'm in this race is because I don't think President Biden can win next November." We made fun of him. You, me, every other show. You can go back in the annals of this show. Marie Harf made fun of him, and she's a former campaign manager who got Seth Moulton elected into Congress. So she knows what it takes to get somebody elected at the next level. We all made fun of him. He set off the warning signals. But nobody had ever heard of Representative Dean Phillips. You don't even know what district in Minnesota he represents. And that's the issue. He wanted more people to come forward to jump into this race, the Gavin Newsoms of the world and Pete Buttigieg's and other folks that have run on the Democratic ticket before. And we all made fun of that. We all poo-pooed it. We all said, get back in line, shut up, to quote John Fetterman. Now here we are, and the man has gotten progressively older. He's almost a year older. Now he's had a debate before the normal conventional process of having debates because they wanted to shine a spotlight on the campaign to show that there is a true choice this November. The problem is the choice is now between the old guy, who I don't know if he's going to be around for 4 more years, and the old crazy guy who was in his yearbook as a freshman when he was a senior. So that's the choice right now. But the problem is we're all being hypocritical about this because when we started this, we all said, and polling told us that nobody wanted this rematch. Now we're here. The RNC convention's next week. We're stuck with Donald Trump, a convicted felon who normally would drop out of the race. Nick and I have been very vocal on this as Senator Bob Menendez is facing charges from the Department of Justice in government influence for the second time to drop out, to resign. He's running for another term. We were all vocal about George Santos, drop out, resign when he got charged. Here we are at the top of the Republican ticket. No matter how you feel about the case, it doesn't matter about the case. Nick and I agree. It's the weakest of the 4 cases. We've had former lawyers on this show all tell us that. We're not lawyers. It's the weakest of the case. We get that. If it's the weakest, he should get off. He did not. Now he's a convicted felon. He's awaiting sentencing. And now, in a normal year, if this was 2004 and none of us were paying attention to politics, he would have resigned already and we wouldn't have this issue. We would just move on to the next Republican, Nikki Haley or Governor DeSantis. And we're not doing that. So we have the hypocrisy there where Donald Trump is still leading the party and going to accept the nomination next week when he should have been getting his sentencing hearing. And then on the flip side, we have something that alarm bells were already going off 10 months prior from somebody else that decided to jump into the race that said, hey, more of us should jump into the race. This guy's only going to get older, and I don't think he can win again. And now here we are, and everyone's going, hey, what? I never said that. I never said this. And now they're all doing the hypocritical dance. And I say this because I don't want to defend Fox News. I don't want to do any of that. But it is funny to me that right now, outside observer looking in, and again, as somebody who's produced segments, been on segments, Nick knows this. I listen to the buzzwords and the phrases. I listen to the language that's coming out of the prompter that the anchor is reading. And when they're starting to blend together from all 3 networks, the segments are starting to look the same. The chyrons on the bottom are all starting to look the same. Should Biden drop out? Here comes this member of Congress to tell us how they feel. And that's not the question we should be asking, because we should have already known based on polling months ago that told us nobody wanted this rematch, based on one person now with a criminal record and the other person who was already making gaffes and showing cognitive decline months ago, that we should not have this rematch. But here we are. And to Nick's overall point, to put a bow on this segment, get out there and vote this November. We do not want to hear you yapping. Even if you vote for RFK, Jill Stein, Cornel West, you vetted candidates, you feel like you want to vote, you live in a state where it matters, Arizona, Nevada, these battleground states, as they like to call them. You live in one of those states, you've gone to some of these rallies, you've listened to some of these people talk, like Nick and I have gone to some of these debates with the Free and Equal Elections Foundation. We've listened to these people talk that are third-party candidates. We didn't like their platforms. So we're probably going to vote for the major party tickets. That's the way it works. Get involved in this process. We don't want to hear from you if you don't get involved in this process, because 2024 in November, it's too pivotal to miss. We leave it there. When we come back after the break, to LinkedIn or to not link this in. Let me tell you something. You shouldn't be linking in political news unless you're interviewing members of Congress like Nick and I do. But to link it in or to not link this in, the #1 business connecting platform, Nick and I are going to give you some tips on how to use it when we come back after the break. Quick break from the pod, as always, to tell you about our friends over at Fresh Roasted Coffee. Delicious tasting coffee that fuels me and Nick every episode. And now it's the summer months. It's hot out, iced coffee, cold brew, tea, iced tea specifically. Got to have all these drinks in these summer months. Nick, you a cold brew guy over there?
Yeah, absolutely. The second that the weather gets hot, my coffee gets cold. Damn, that was a nice line, actually. But right. Yeah, I just recently tried the cold brew. I was super excited about it. I definitely drink a lot of iced coffees and cold brews from different places. I order everything from Fresh Roasted Coffee, so the fact I can now get my cold brew as well from there, I'm totally in.
I knew you would be. And for the people out there that are listening, as always, thanks for supporting Fresh Roasted Coffee, because the blends, the flavors, the roast, you can go to their website by clicking the link in our show notes right now. Put in some cold brew into the shopping cart. When you get to checkout, enter in the promo code, can we please get 20, all one word, can we please get 2020. You're going to get 20% off that first purchase. All right, Nick, the serious stuff is out of the way. We covered President Biden and former President Trump, and the state of the race as the RNC comes up. Now let's get to the serious stuff. To link this in or to not link this in. One of my favorite segments here on the show that we like to do. My co-host is already laughing for those of you watching on YouTube. It truly is funny, but I said it in the intro of the show. The world's number one business connecting platform, and people are just using it all willy-nilly, like it's Facebook all over again. And we're seeing some outrageous posts. But today, Nick and I are going to tell you whether or not you should link this in or not link this in. All right, Nick, the first one's up here on our screen. So the post reads, I used to think I couldn't be successful in my career and be a good mom, and is in all capital letters. I'm learning as my daughter quickly approaches her second birthday, parentheses, leave me alone, I'm still emotional about this, and I am pregnant with a second little one on the way, that quite the opposite is true. I can be fantastic at my job and then unplug to be the mom my kiddos deserve. I'm capable of both. Being a mom has honestly helped me be a better coworker in a lot of aspects as well. I have more patience than ever. I have empathy towards clients and candidates that I partner with. My time management has, in all caps, to be on point, or I fall behind in both my personal and work life. Being a work parent is not for the faint of heart, but it can be very rewarding. All right, Nick. I mean, I'm laughing already because, again, I would not post any of these things. Spoiler alert, folks. I would not be posting any of these things to LinkedIn. LinkedIn to me is, hey, I got a new job. Thanks. Give me some congratulations. I just created this video. Check it out. I was on this segment. That's all I use LinkedIn for. If you follow me on LinkedIn, appreciate it. Michael Leon, Nicholas Saveri, follow us on LinkedIn. But that is all I use it for. So I'm going to disagree with anything you say, whether or not to link it in or not link it in, because I don't think you should link any of these in. Would you link this in or would you not link it in? What's your recommendation here?
I'm going to surprise a lot of people because I think the last time I did this, I hit one of these posts with like a hard hell no. And that may happen again, but not with this one. I'm actually okay with this posting. The only thing I'm going to offer here is that if you're going to post this, like direct it back to yourself in some way in the form of something professional. In other words, if you wrote like a blog post about this, or if you appeared on a podcast or some way for us to hear more about the story, I'm in. I totally get it. And it might be my bias because for the better part of a couple of years, I was also balancing the kids and also working from home. So I totally understand. And in 2024, I expect to see more posts of this, of people just sort of unloading, the balance of family and your professional life. I totally get it. But you kind of have to have some way to sort of bring us in. Like you've invited us, like you told us something personal. Where are we going from here? Right? Like if you're trying to like put a question out to people, like how do you all do it? Awesome. But otherwise, this is kind of a little bit of a humble brag. I work hard. I do this stuff. The end. Great. Like that. You could have sent me that as a text if we're friends. Otherwise, I'm not sure what we're doing here.
Again, I said before this segment, I would not link any of this in. I would not put any of this up. LinkedIn is a business connecting platform. I don't understand why people are using it similar to a Facebook to post just how they're feeling, or if they're in a relationship, or if they're on vacation. Like that's not what it's for. It's, in my opinion, again, just given the masthead, the world's number one business connecting platform. So I wouldn't link it in. But now that you kind of say that, you're right. If she's going to put a post like that, direct it into something that you've done that's beneficial, right? You've been on a podcast talking about the challenges. Maybe it was a niche-based podcast that talks about working moms, balancing both the work life and the home life. I think you're right, Nick. So you know what? I may come over on the to link this in, but with a caveat of that you should put it, redirect it back to you in something you've done, a call to action, as Nick Saveri would say. Okay, that's our first one. All right, Nick, they get progressively worse here. Because in this second one, as you can see on our screen here, it says, and this is from a repeat offender that's recently been on the other LinkedIn segment, but it says, good day to my wonderful network. Today, I am launching my campaign to be your company's next recruiter. I, along with my running mate, and it's a picture of the dog with an American flag. For those of you that are not watching us on YouTube, His running mate is the dog, are seeking your vote and support to secure a new in-house or contract recruiter opportunity in the New York City area. I have 10 plus years of experience in the public sector, having worked for, and they list a couple of companies. My platform is based on integrity, sincere collaboration, recruitment with DEI in mind, and an equitable experience for all candidates. Then the dog's name believes in the same ideals and also is in favor of treats for all. If you want to stand on the right side of history and help us secure our next role, we ask for your vote by liking this post, commenting on it, sharing it with your network, and tagging your HR contacts, please. Okay, Nick Saveri. For the people that are, again, not watching us on YouTube, I highly recommend that you do watch this segment on YouTube because it's visually appealing. But the picture of the dog, this is the same person that had the last picture of the dog. So clearly, they're still unemployed. Okay, so we can kind of gather from that. And that segment was about 4 or 5 months ago. So I'm already off to a bad start. But this person posted this in a campaign sense because, again, this is around the first debate was happening. A little bit intriguing. I think the structure of it, as somebody who has done, kind of brand marketing and stuff like that, I think it's interesting. Okay, you got me a little bit on the hook. But again, business connecting platform, like I've mentioned. So they're talking about, hey, I need to get a job. Like I need to work back in business. This is what LinkedIn is for, right? To tell people I'm available, I'm open on the market. To do it in this kind of campaign way is a little interesting. But what does Nick Saveri say? Like Chuck Norris, thumbs up, thumbs down to link it in or to not link it in? What says Nick Saveri?
No. And Florence, doggy, if you're listening to me, your owner's an idiot. I'm sorry to be the one to break this to you. The thing about this post, there's many things here. First off, it's weird that people put themselves out there in the way of, I'm looking for work. I get it. Totally understand. But if you're going, the thing that I think draws people to your postings or your account on LinkedIn are your accomplishments. It's not enough to say that I'm looking for an opportunity. Awesome. In some way, more or less, when people post anything on LinkedIn, that's kind of what you're saying is, yes, I may be happy with what I'm doing, but I'm putting myself out there because if, someone wants to hit me up and offer me the opportunity of a lifetime, I'm willing to listen. So I think to anyone that wants to put themselves out there on LinkedIn, I think the way you do it is by sharing your accomplishments. And I'm not going to try to brag here for a minute. Well, I mean, it may come off as bragging. I don't care if it does. When Mike and I put out episodes, or I do over at Educate US, or Mike does on his various appearances on television, those are accomplishments. Hey, just did something, putting it out there. And yes, part of it is for our friends and supporters that just want to, we want to make sure they're along for the ride, right? That's great for them. But it's also to let it be known, hey, I'm out in these streets doing some incredible work. Just letting you all know, right? But it can't be, hey, podcaster here at Leon Media Network looking for opportunities. What would draw someone? But if I'm telling you, hey, just spoke with, I don't know. I just dropped a name here. Sorry, Jake Tapper. Then people are kind of interested. It's like, well, look what work is going on. So you got to lead with accomplishment. You can't lead with desperation. And that's a tough word here, but I'm going to put it out there. You sound like you're hungry. That's cool. But tell me what you've done. Sorry, Florence.
No, listen, Florence, we're sorry. You're a good boy or a good girl. I'm assuming it's a girl for Florence. I have no idea these days. Who knows with the dogs? I say that to say that you're right. Like leading with the accomplishments. I think there's a couple things here because it's all subjective, right? We're obviously poking fun. We're having a little bit of fun. But in all honesty, to Nick's point, if you're putting yourself out there to try to get a job, LinkedIn is the front door that people instantly check when somebody applies for a job. So if this is the front door, right, and there's the welcome mat, the reef, whatever it is that's on the front door of the domicile that is, Mike Leon, what do I want it to be, right? And so for this person, right, yeah, it's clever, the dog, the marketing campaign, but to Nick's point, there is a little bit of desperation here. Like you can go about channeling the desperation in a different manner. And I think that's the point of LinkedIn. It's to connect to people and then you direct message them. Hey, I saw you work here and there's an opening here. Would you happen to know somebody there? Or connecting with somebody that you worked with years ago that happens to work at that place that you can hit back up. I know that's tougher for people to do because, hey, I haven't talked to them in 5 years. Now let me ask them if they can help me. But still, that's what this whole platform was for, to connect people, not to tell me that you're desperate and someone please help. Although some people may say it is. Okay, let me tell you what the platform is not for. It's going to be for this last one, because I know Nick Saveri is going to put a hard no on this, to link this in or to not link this in. Okay, Nick, this is a person that decided, as you're seeing my screen here, to say, Beyonce's new album is really cool. This is what the post says, Nick. This is on, again, the world's #1 business connecting platform. Queen Bey just gave us a new album just in time for Q2, and I'll be riding this wavelength all the way through June. It's a great day to, and then there's a bunch of bullet points, set challenging yet attainable goals, give yourself the time and space to reset, not make an April Fool's joke on social media, react to this post if I should change my name on LinkedIn to Cowboy Carter, because her first name is Carter. Hashtag social media, hashtag goals, and it's a picture of her in the Beyonce cowboy outfit on a cowboy. Excuse me, on a horse. She is a cowgirl on the thing. Okay, Nick, business connecting platform. Okay. Just got a new certificate. Just got a new job. Jake Tapper joined me this week on the pod. Also, Beyonce dropped her album. What do you think of that? To link this in or to not link this in, what says Nicholas Saveri?
Do not link this in, you colonizer. Damn, I try to laugh. How dare you put your face as a white woman on a black woman's face? What the hell's wrong with you? And that may not have been your intent here from a racial viewpoint, but I'm just going to bring that up because I don't care that your first name goes along with her last name, her married last name. I don't care. It's a stupid post. The album, by the way, is overall good. I would recommend people check it out. But I am not understanding the connection between this album coming out by an artist you like who shares, a name, and then you tying it to some professional advice you give people. Pick the lane. And honestly, the lane that involves you replacing your face with Beyonce, and don't ever do that. Please don't ever do that again. Don't choose that one. Florence, if you're still listening, hit her up and tell her she's being a bozo too. If you do want to post about specific tips, like those 3 that she gave, they're not bad, actually. Way back when, I'm going to do a huge callback. Within the first 20 episodes, maybe 30 at Can We Please Talk, we had a guy on, I believe it was Ish Verduzzo, I think. Ish was awesome. And a lot of Ish's posts are really good advice professionally. And that's where he leaves it. Sometimes he's, flexing, holding a coffee mug or whatever he's doing. Awesome. Live your life. But there's some learning going on there. In this one, I can't see the learning because I'm too busy looking at the fact that you decided to replace Beyonce's face with yours. That's dumb. Stop doing that.
I mean, again, not for the business, the world's #1 business connecting platform. I can't stress that enough. Thank you for indulging us in some of these ridiculous posts. If you're on LinkedIn right now, if you're listening to this, if you've made our way onto the Can We Please Talk show and you're like, hey, that was me in that post, we apologize in advance. But just know that you probably shouldn't have linked it in to the world's #1 business connecting platform. We leave it there. As always, you can check out the video portions of any of the interviews or any of the segments we've done on this show. Head over to the Can We Please Talk channel over on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button for me while you're there. Audio podcast platforms, you know them by now: Apple, Spotify, Google. Shout out to everybody who listens to us on Good Pods. Shout out to Acast, our hosting platform. Can't do without them. Can't do without each and every one of you that listens to this program. As always, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Mike Leon.
And the immortal words, or using the immortal words of Kendrick Lamar, be a colleague, don't be a colonizer. You know what I'm talking about. I'm Nick Saveri.
We'll see everybody next time.